The Sunnyside garden was in a bit of an identity crisis. Did it want to be a Roman villa, a southeast jungle, a Provençal potager, or maybe a woodland-inspired glen? One thing it was not, for sure, was just another suburban lawn. It was time to reimagine the spot. I got inspired by what was around me. There was a pile of sycamore trunks disposed of in a neighboring lot. I took the opportunity to transform my reliable side garden from just a utilitarian food-producing garden into a place of enchantment. In the previous year, I had built this rustic archway to serve as trellis to my cucumbers and beans, and it opened up my mind to the possibilities. Adding hardscape elements grounds a garden's design, just like providing skeleton to flesh creates the figure. I had to explore further. I went about cleaning the space from random pavers, rocks, and weeds to make an organized design. I decided to use the sycamore trunks as edging to my planting bed. I loved their contrasting light color and natural sinuous forms. They would help break up the rigidness of this side yard. I was following what I called intuitive inductive design. I was letting the space and materials speak as to how they should be best used and structured. This way of design thinking can help you develop your own space to transform it into a place of abundant beauty and practicality. It is an easy paradigm to follow. Just remember these few simple steps, always observing and then reacting. First step, discover the main uses and forms of the space. I purposefully say discover rather than decide, because the space is what gives you the clues. You cannot dictate what you want it to be. You must discover or distill what it naturally is talented to be. Much like people, spaces have talents and flaws. To succeed, you must work on correcting the flaws, but most importantly, you must highlight talents. This space is naturally long, so it wants to connect one place to another and serve as a path. That is a talent. So having a path takes center stage made practical sense. I need to pass through this area to gain access to my backyard. This is a linear piece of land, so its form is harmonious with its use as a path. It is also a sunny spot. That is another talent for creating a garden with edibles. Vegetables thrive in sunny areas, so this place would naturally excel at growing them. A flaw in this space is that a straight linear path, while very efficient at getting people from one point to another, is perhaps too efficient at that, making it feel less like a place you can linger at. To remedy this, I decided to force a more sinuous, natural path to make me slow down a bit to take in the space. Step 2 is to find honest materials and their honest use. Every year I have grapevine prunings and fallen branches, so I decided to use these very local garden materials to build a woodland-inspired trellis. I used galvanized electrical conduits to serve as the main structural elements, weaving in the branches and vines to create a softer look. As the years pass, I can add more and more layers of vines, tying up the structure while dressing it with more natural materials and lines. I was letting the space talk to me, and I could see a more sinuous path with two main borders edged with natural logs in a serpentine design. The arch made of branches would allow for climbing crops to use the space more effectively, as well as serve as an entryway into my garden, marking that space as a private haven. The plants would provide flesh to the design, and their natural forms would echo the branches, vines, and logs, while further softening the space, adding more incentive for people to slow down and enjoy while passing through. Using the logs as edging was honest in two ways. First, it was a local material destined to the landfill. I did not have to buy it and ship it in or create it synthetically. Maryland is a forested area naturally, so using wood logs is materially honest. Doing this in the middle of a desert would not be honest. The second way it was honest is in its form. A trunk is linear and has weight. Its form lends itself to creating an edge, a border, and helps retain soil, so this use is formally honest. These curved logs naturally lend themselves to creating curvy paths, so that is also honest in form. The angular, straight lines of the house and even garden cages need graceful natural curves and jagged lines to make the overall composition more inviting and warm. This brings up the third step: orchestrate harmonies and counterpoints. Humans naturally seek order, but perfect order can soon be tiresome. Counterpointing order and structure with a bit of disarray helps compositions and designs retain interest. Finding rhythms of repeating or complementing colors, shapes, lines, or textures can bring in order and help set a theme. The light-colored sycamore logs are harmonious with the whitewashed stone foundation of the house while maintaining good contrast with the grass. With one bed completely edged out, I liked where this was going. I was starting to have more ideas. Coming up in the next block, I will show you how I added other elements into this garden to make it a more complete design. You won't want to miss it right after this commercial. I returned a few days later with new ideas for the space. The soil here is really compacted, so it makes sense to put some stepping stones. The grass is not growing well because of the constant traffic. Therefore, putting the stepping stones will mark the way and it will help the places that I don't step become greener. Because the space always wanted by necessity to be a path, finding more resistant materials to pave the way seemed imperative. I went to a local landscaping store that specializes in stone and got a few flagstones to use as stepping stones to mark my path. They were on sale as a special offer, so they were actually cheaper than buying concrete pavers. While using flagstones as stepping stones has disadvantages, I felt that it would work well for what I needed. When choosing stepping stones, the bigger you can find them, the better. Mine were small for using as stepping stones and would eventually prove to be less practical than they should be at their size. But larger stones are considerably more expensive. One thing that I did not like about stones that are sold as stepping stones, beside being way more expensive, is that they are too regular in form. I thought irregular shapes would look more natural and cohesive with the logs and plants. Once I had laid them out on the path and had wised up enough to protect my hands with gloves, I was happy to see where this design was going. These shapes and colors echo the stone foundation and sycamore logs. I fine-tuned the arrangement of the stones to make it feel more natural to walk on. I wanted them to be close enough to comfortably walk from one to the other without feeling like it was hopscotch. Because of the size of these stones, I would have to bury them on the ground so they would settle in to prevent tripping over. Larger stepping stones may be stable enough with their own weight and size to just rest upon the grass. This was going to take a bit of work, but I was excited to see how the space would turn out. I proceeded to cut the lawn around the stones to remove the clump of sod, leaving a depression where I could lay the stone on to become flush with the ground. What I really loved about this stone was that it had a very local fieldstone coloration texture and shape, making it really fit in with the surroundings. It would also serve the main purpose of highlighting the path. I reserved the clumps of sod on the side for later to use the soil and some of the grass. My objective was to create a somewhat even soil surface to serve as a bed for the stone. While sand is usually spread under paths to stabilize the surface, I felt that for individual small stepping stones, this would be unnecessary. In all honesty, this was a very makeshift path choice, and if you want a more stable and lasting path, a more involved process of using gravel, sand, and a weed-preventing layer as well as bigger stones would be needed. I was testing out the possibilities. Once I laid the stone, I filled the gaps with the leftover soil and grass to stabilize it. Designing a garden, in my view, is about experiencing and reacting to a place. I've spent several seasons planting here and have grown to know details about this space. The way the sun hits the ground, how the rain flows on the earth, the plants that naturally want to grow here, and the ones that struggle. A true garden that holds its weight is never manufactured but always grown. Gardeners are collaborators with nature who must work through time, through the days and weeks and months and years and even decades. It is always a work in progress that is perfectly composed every day. With the other side of the logs completed, this path and stones created rhythm. I was happy. Gardening is all about making your own existence special. There's still a lot to finish, but little by little this place is turning out to be a special little place.